Hey folks, I thought I'd share a story with you, one that happened the last trip to Ohio. You heard me say I called Christopher just before I went into the interview with John, the last interview with John. Before that, I went to his last known address. I looked the address up in my database and then I matched it up with the registered sexual offender website. This address happened to be in Fairfield, so as I was driving to his last known address, I noticed most of the homes look very clean and well manicured. Fairfield is a nice middle-class suburb of Cincinnati. Most of the areas I've traveled in Fairfield were really maintained and very neat. There are bad parts of Fairfield as well, and I've seen those, but for the most part, Fairfield is a beautiful place. I knew Christopher was staying with family members of friends, so I was hoping this would be a nice family and convince Christopher to talk to the nice man. As I continued on the street, I noticed that one house. The one house that stands out in every neighborhood. The one that's not so well manicured, needs a paint job, and the grass is knee level. As I've done in the past, I kept repeating in my head, please don't let that be it. Please don't let that be it. And like 100% of the time, I have repeated that in my head. The eyesore house was the correct house. It was the one I was looking for. Lisa looked at it, looked at me, and in her Alabama accent asked, "You just want me to stay in the truck?" No. You're gonna experience some real PI work now, Lisa. The driveway led to a raggedy attempt to reenact a paver walkway to the front stairs. As I was walking up the 4 or 5 steps to the concrete stoop, I told Lisa to stay put at the bottom of the stairs, to the left side. This was for safety reasons. I knocked on the door and immediately looked down on the ground next to the stoop. There was a dead rat right there at the front door. I told Lisa, she was on the opposite side of the rat and couldn't see it, to walk over and look at what was over here. She did. Then all hell broke loose. She walked back to the driveway singing, "Nope, nope, 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 nope." She finally stopped and turned around. She looked at me, and I still remember the look she gave me. It wasn't a look any man wants to see on a woman's face. But I noticed something very interesting while Lisa was giving me the death stare. Lisa had her arms crossed, her legs together, lifting one leg up at a time, very quickly. I call it her toddler potty dance. I mouthed to her to stop. I knocked on the door again. Whoever was in the house wasn't in a hurry to answer the door. I looked back at Lisa. Good news. She stopped doing the toddler potty dance. Bad news. She jumped into a knee rotating type thing, making little circles with her knees. I call it her knee hula hoop routine. I gave her another stop. The door opened. A larger woman with no bra and a white t-shirt appeared. Her shirt had red and yellow stains on it, like ketchup and mustard from a hot dog just exploded on her shirt. Her sweatpants were supposed to be white, but not so much. She looked at me and said, "Yeah?" I asked for Christopher. She said that he didn't live there anymore. He had moved out 3 or 4 weeks ago. I wonder if the state knew that. I wonder if the state knew Christopher wasn't living where the registry said he was. Or if he even changed his address with the state at that point in time. He had been out of the house for 3 or 4 weeks. The lady did give me an updated phone number. That was out of order. I did finally dig up Christopher's cell number. It took a while, but it was in his dad's name. I find that interesting because I spoke to Christopher's dad just weeks before going to Ohio in October of 2016. The dad told me he hadn't talked to Christopher in about a year, so he wasn't really sure how I could get a hold of him. Maybe he could have given me the phone number that was on his phone bill. As Lisa and I drove away, I grabbed some sanitizer for my hands. Lisa then yanked it out of my hands and unscrewed the little white pop top and drowned her hands with the sanitizer. She cleaned her arms, and I even saw her rubbing it on her face. That was fun times. Thanks for listening to Gone at 21, Katelyn Markham's Death Investigation. There was a fallout between Katelyn and a couple of her former friends that attended the Art Institute. I first heard about one of these women that had an issue with Katelyn from John. He told me of the time at Katelyn's memorial when one of these women refused to hug him and told him that she thought he killed Katelyn, right there at the memorial in front of other people. I then spoke to several people that went to school with Katelyn at the Art Institute, where I learned more about the tiff between Katelyn and these women. I even spoke to one of the women involved. These interviews occurred in February of 2015. I decided to wait on sharing these interviews so you wouldn't get them mistaken for Katelyn's other group of friends in Fairfield. These are, as John refers to as, school friends in one of his interviews. Here is Rose, a friend of Katelyn's from the Art Institute.
I met Katelyn my first day at the Art Institute of Ohio, Cincinnati. I actually sat down right next to her, and we were best friends from the moment we met. She was like a little sister to me. While in school, we spent every second together while I was in school. And I graduated before her, probably about a year before her actual graduation date. But even then, we stayed very close in touch via text message, phone, email, Facebook, etc.
Okay. Did you spend you spent time with her, but did you spend time with her and John and, the other friends in Fairfield?
I spent time with her and John. And any of her other friends that we spent time with, it would mainly be on campus at the Art Institute. And it was limited to lunch or any kind of, just hanging out in between classes on campus.
Okay. All right. And what was the relationship like with John?
Between me and John, or John and Katelyn?
John and Katelyn.
When I had first met them, they had been dating for a while. How I saw it was just kids in love, always laughing, hanging out, having a good time. But it was very close to, I think, right as I was graduating or right after I graduated, they got engaged. And Katelyn had always talked about getting engaged to John and marrying John. Granted, she was a little nervous, but I believe that had a lot to do with financial stability, as well as her family background. Mm-hmm. And not really knowing where either of them were going with their future. So, like I said, I'm 30 now. I'm 33, so she was much younger than me. So I saw her more as a kid sister. So my view of her is more of like a kid sister. She had considered me a mentor. So she'd come to me for like big sister advice and stuff like that. So.
Well, was your big sister advice ever given about a relationship with somebody, or maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
I had given some advice with her and John, but there was a kid that she had expressed to me that had some interest in her, and the way that she described it to me, it was a sexual interest, and I advised her to stay far away from this kid. Katelyn, my goodness, loves everybody, friends with everybody, befriended everybody. I think because she herself, being adopted, felt like an outcast. Was not one to turn down a friend. But she had asked me, she had called me and asked me about this relationship. I do believe it was a younger kid, and he was very forward with her, and about his attraction to her, especially in terms of a relationship with her that was more than just friends. And I told her that she needed to cut the relationship off immediately.
Who was this? What was his name?
Honestly, I cannot remember. Okay. What I do remember is she described to me text message conversations, and I do believe there was some inappropriate Facebook messages back and forth between her and this kid. And I say kid because I do believe he was around her age. I don't believe it was anybody significant older than her.
Okay. School could mean the Art Institute or high school Butler Tech. The description of the messages that Rose said this individual sent Katelyn sound like what John described Christopher sending Katelyn. Here's the advice Rose gave Katelyn.
Because definitely, I do remember specific conversation with her that I was definitely concerned for her, because his interest in her was inappropriate, and it was definitely, she felt uncomfortable. I remember her telling me she didn't know what to do. She felt uncomfortable, but she didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. She was definitely concerned. She was definitely concerned that it would hurt John's feelings, because she didn't have an inappropriate relationship with this guy. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I felt like she was in a situation where he was pursuing her inappropriately and quite
aggressively?
Yeah, aggressively, yeah. He was definitely pursuing her aggressively, which is why she called me and was like, I don't know what to do. And I told her, just, you need to cut him off completely. Mm-hmm. And when I did talk to her, she was uncomfortable with that advice, mainly because knowing her, she didn't like conflict, and she wanted to be friends with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I will definitely look at my text messages, my Facebook messages, and see if anything was mentioned. But I do know that it was more of a conversation over the phone. But I'll still check.
Okay. I asked Rose if Katelyn had any issues with anyone at the Art Institute.
I'm trying to think. There is definitely one girl that I remember that really gave Katelyn a hard time, which was shocking to me because I don't remember anybody ever giving Katelyn a hard time. But this girl gave her a really, really hard time, and Katelyn actually had called to talk to me about her as well. She didn't know what to do. This girl was just being very, very mean, almost like a Mean Girls story, right. Like the movie. And I remember very specifically when Katelyn went missing, all of a sudden this girl was touting about how they were best friends. Probably wasn't very mature. Yeah, probably wasn't very mature of me, but I was very angry. Mm-hmm. Because I had known the nature of the relationship, and I had a conversation with her. It wasn't direct, like, hey, you need to watch yourself, but she tried to get involved. When Katelyn went missing, I immediately reached out to John in support and prayer and, whatever he needed, especially with his family. And I also had a friend of mine at my church that was a private investigator, and she walked with me through. And long story short, this girl, I think she saw an opportunity to, well, frankly, become a part of, to be on TV.
Right.
To be on TV, to be a part, which infuriated me. It disgusted me to no end. So she tried to befriend me, and you know, and I basically was like, no, you need to back up. You need to walk away. You're not involved. So I don't remember her name. I don't know if that's the same girl. But that name definitely rings a bell.
Well, she kind of bitched John out at the funeral.
That girl is a mess.
Do you think that's the same girl?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
It would not surprise me if it was. Actually, I'm almost certain it's the same girl because, okay, it's coming back to me. I remember John calling me, and he was so upset. And I remember calming him down and, you know, this was explaining to him what I explained to you.
Mm-hmm.
That she's just looking for drama. She's looking for drama. She's looking to be integrated. She's looking to be seen. You know, explaining to him inappropriate behavior. That I can actually probably even find a picture of this girl. I'm not sure of her name, but I bet you I could find a picture of this girl and send it to you.
That would be amazing. That would be so amazing. Because I bet you John doesn't realize this girl was being mean to her.
No, she was being, just wretched. Again, it was almost like that big sister part of me. It was hard for me not, again, I was like 10 years older than her. It was hard for me not to go into mean girl status and want to, step up in front and be like, look here.
Yeah.
But did my best, did my best to give them mature advice and to encourage her. But, and even the same thing, even be faced. Actually, the name Allison rings a bell as well.
Allison.
But I'll definitely find a picture. I know the girl that I'm talking about that was being so, mean girl to her, as well as I know that she had been inappropriate with John in terms of being just wretched with him in the same manner. And I explained to him that, that Katelyn and her weren't friends. And, of course, Katelyn was just wrecked by this. She just couldn't believe that no one liked her. And honestly, or that this girl didn't like her. And I was the same way. I couldn't believe it either. Honestly, I just felt it was straight up jealousy.
Yeah.
I even told her, I said, this girl is just so amazingly jealous of you.
I saw
and a lot of it.
John's mom showed me some of Katelyn's work, and I was blown away.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Honestly, that girl inspired me in so many ways. Honestly, it's terrible to say, the motivation in my life and my own personal work, it wrecked me to see such a beautiful artist just her life cut so short that it's inspired me. I have to do it.
Right.
It's she's my inspiration now. But yeah, there's a lot when it comes to artists. I'm telling you what, there's a lot of jealousy. And Katelyn was very free. A lot of creatives, a lot of artists. I've been an artist and a designer all my life, and I have felt the pain of jealousy from other people.
Right.
And this girl was jealous of Katelyn's freedom and her creativity and expression. Just even in her sketches, her photography, just in the way that she dressed. That girl was as heartbroken and all the trials in her life. She was so free in her artwork, and that's something that so many creatives desire. But unfortunately, the majority of creatives, rather than latching onto that and being inspired by it themselves and falling in love with their fellow artists, get jealous and angry and inappropriate.
So This woman was not nice nor a friend to Katelyn. She was accusing John of killing Katelyn at her memorial. She seemed to want attention or to interject herself into Katelyn's life and story now that she was dead. Katelyn was a good artist, a great artist, and Rose just described the competitiveness and nastiness that goes on inside the art world. Quite frankly, I'm concerned at this point. Here is another friend of Katelyn's, Sam, from the Art Institute.
So Katelyn and I were best friends. Not the type of best friends that, like, you bring home to your parents and hang out with, because we weren't in that kind of relationship. But we were best friends everywhere else. We were best friends at school. We would hang out outside of school. I met her when I moved to Ohio and started going to the Art Institute. We had a class together. And ever since we met, we just hit it off, and we got really close. And then after I graduated, we were so close, and then I moved back to you, and we talked all the time. She was actually getting ready to come out and visit me in October, before, obviously, she went missing, and before she moved out to Colorado.
Okay.
Her and John were both going to come out.
Okay.
So
you never really hung out at her house, but it was more like a school. And where else did you hang out besides school?
Oh, well, she invited me over a couple of times, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't working out because I was commuting back from Cincinnati to Dayton to Columbus, where my fiance lives. So weekends were out, and during the week it was all school. But
Right.
we hung out a lot. Like, we'd go and meet for dinner at, like, TGIF. That was one of our favorite hangouts. Or she'd come over to my apartment because it was right next to the school. Stuff like that.
Okay.
Or, like, when we had outings that we had to go to, we'd do them together.
Okay. Now, did you know a Mickey or Nikki? I'm not sure which one it was. It was a Mickey?
Mickey.
I'm not sure if that's her name, but she would have been at school with Katelyn.
Yeah, she was awful to Katelyn.
Okay, hang on one
Until she
second.
went missing.
Let me, Mickey.
Yep.
Okay.
And
do you know if that was
really
her?
what-
You know if that was her real name, Mickey, or was it short for something?
I had no idea. I didn't really associate with her because she wasn't very nice to Katelyn at all. So
Okay.
I tried to keep my distance.
Okay. Tell me, because that's very, very odd. She apparently, I don't know if you know, that she bitched John out at Katelyn's memorial.
Let's listen to that clip real quick.
There's another person who said they would never trust me or believe me or whatever, and I'm only going through this because you asked me if there's anybody who I have in my
Right, exactly.
Her name is Mickey. I don't know her last name. At Katelyn's funeral, I went to approach her to give her a hug, and she said, "No, get the fuck away from me." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you probably killed her." I said, "I can't believe you would say that." She said, "I believe it in my heart." And I immediately left. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't be around her. I immediately left. I cried. My cousin Craig came and tried to comfort me. After the funeral, when we were walking out, I saw her leaving, and I decided to approach her one more time to try to convey to her that it hurt, and that actually really what I wanted to say was that proximity is not evidence of guilt, and
True.
just because I'm near somebody does not mean that I murdered somebody.
Correct.
And just because she was found near a property that my dad lives does not mean that I killed her. Proximity is not evidence of guilt.
Right.
That's basically what I told her. And she said, "That's not up to me, that's up for the police to decide, but I believe in my heart that you killed her." And then I left with my mother. We drove around and I...
Who knows Mickey?
Allison.
No, yeah, Allison, I guess. I don't remember her last name either.
Allison went to school with Katelyn. They were good friends. I have her name somewhere. I can't remember what it is, but
Could you-
Allison, Mickey, and Katelyn were really close.
Okay.
Yes, in case you were wondering, that was a cuckoo clock going off in the background at the end of Karen's comment. Here is Sam talking more about Mickey and a woman named Allison. Sam also talks about a possible stalker.
Were you aware of that?
John said someone had, but he didn't mention names.
Yeah, it was
He was
Mickey.
really upset about it. And I said, you don't have to tell me who it was or what happened, but I'm here, and if you want to talk, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And he was just mortified, and then I got really upset. I had no idea it was Mickey.
Yeah. Well, she acted like she was her best friend and that John had
God,
did.
no.
Tell me a little bit more about this girl, because I want to tell you, I'm hearing some things where she was a lesbian and she might have been attracted to Katelyn.
As far, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know Mickey. I didn't then, I don't now, but I know a lot of Katelyn's friends that were really close with her, especially like John, her fiance, myself, Megan. We were all really upset when she went missing, when when Mickey was all of a sudden like, oh, she's my best friend, oh, I did this beautiful portrait for her, and I'm like, really? Because before she went missing, you couldn't seem to give two craps. You talked crap about her all the time. I remember Katelyn coming to class all upset and crying because Mickey and Mickey's friend Allison was mutual friends with both Mickey and Katelyn, and they were just terrible. I can't remember specific events, and I don't want to like make anything up, obviously. I just remember how terrible Katelyn felt, and that they had a falling out because her and Allison were like two peas in a pod, and then Mickey came into the situation, and then all of a sudden her and Allison weren't friends anymore. But it was just so odd.
So what were they saying about Katelyn? Were they just being mean, or what were they saying about her?
I honestly can't remember, but I know, you know how like when you have a best friend and all of a sudden there's this third wheel that pops in, and then before you know it, you're the third wheel?
Yeah.
I guess he was just, I don't remember, I honestly, it was a long time ago, remember specifics, and Katelyn wasn't one to talk about what had happened specifically, just like the general gist of things, but basically Mickey just started talking crap about Katelyn, and then Allison started to believe it, and then her and Allison weren't friends anymore, which was the hardest thing for Katelyn because her and Allison were really close.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember. I'm sorry. I wish I could be more helpful, but I don't remember what exactly. I just know it affected Katelyn in such a way that it affected her home life, her at school, her relationship with John. I mean, whatever went down, it was pretty awful.
Okay. So, Mickey obviously didn't like Katelyn. Katelyn didn't like Mickey. But then Mickey was playing like she was Katelyn's friend after she disappeared.
Yeah, it was infuriating to have her. You would think everyone would be so excited about the, I don't know if you saw, but she made this beautiful portrait and painting of Katelyn, and it was beautiful. But it was infuriating to her friends because we're like, you weren't even nice to her. You were such a bitch all the time. Just like little snide comments she'd make. Or, you know, the look she would give her in the hall at school. Just anything she could do to make Katelyn feel like crap, she would. And then to have her say that she was her best friend and that she missed her and she couldn't believe she was gone was just repulsive. And that's when I started withdrawing from the whole situation.
Okay.
It's just so unfair to see people stand up for Katelyn that didn't even know her.
Right. Tell me about, was telling me that there was some guy that was, I guess, interested in Katelyn, and he kept kind of in a sexual way. Do you know who that was?
She never told me his name. I know Megan had mentioned that she thought he went to our school. I don't remember that. I just remember such odd things. I remember that he was tall and he had dark hair. And she never told me his name. She just kind of told me like what he looked like and that he made her very uncomfortable. And Katelyn loves everyone. Just like she tried to be friends with Mickey, even though she was terrible to her, she was trying to be the better person. You know, she was trying to be nice to this guy, but he just kept taking everything the wrong way and wanted to have a relationship with her. And she's like, I'm with John, I'm engaged, like, this is never going to happen. And then he would start popping up out of nowhere. Like, she'd be at the store and he'd be there. Or she, would leave her house and go for a walk and he'd pop up. And it just started to make her feel really extremely uncomfortable. I know she had talked to Anne and myself about it, and we were both like, you need to nip this in the bud and have a serious conversation and tell him you can no longer be friends because it's off the level of super creepy. I'm surprised John
doesn't know. Let me see if John, I can trigger something in his mind about who it was.
She may not have told John because she didn't want him to worry. It was the impression that I got from her, which is why she never gave me a name that I recall. She was very specific. It was like intentional that she didn't want to say who the person's name was. So I assumed it was probably someone that I knew.
We hear school again, and if I went to the Art Institute with someone and they mention someone from school, I would think Art Institute as well, not knowing I know this person from school was high school. She was awful to Katelyn, Sam said. Now, we are making some progress with getting possible information about Mickey and some hostility from her towards Katelyn. Could this have escalated? Sam is the second person to have knowledge about this troubled relationship between Mickey and Katelyn. Sam speaks about Katelyn getting away from bad influences in her life.
From my understanding, Katelyn was trying to get out of that situation because that was kind of like who she was before she went to school, and now she had this great new job, and she was transitioning into Colorado, she was getting ready to graduate, she was trying to be a different type of person. Like those were kind of her, I don't want to say like druggy or bad, but they were bad influence people. She was trying to cut off from them and move into this new type of relationships within it myself. And
we've heard Allison's name several times, so I needed to speak to Allison. Allison's phone had some reception issues, and her voice and the speed in which she speaks could be hard to hear. So you might want to turn the volume up a little bit.
I went back to the Art Institute of Ohio in Cincinnati to go back to school for my bachelor degree program, and I was starting as a student worker at a bookstore, and she was going to be leaving, ending her associate's degree. I was starting back for my bachelor's, and I wanted to go back to school and work at school, so she kind of was, showing me the ropes a little bit, as well as the manager was showing me the ropes on how the store worked and everything. So I think she and I worked together for the first 3 months because it was quarterly, January, February, March, so she was leaving in March.
Okay.
And basically, at the end of that quarter, she decided to stay for the bachelor's because I think with her dad and her uncle, they were doing the loans or co-signing for whatever, and she was like, I can't do this on my own, they won't re-sign for me, or whatever, so she decided to stay and just have other people be her co-signers. So she decided to stay, and then since she was in her bachelor's and I was in my bachelor's, we became classmates as well as, co-workers, so that's how we met.
Okay. And tell me, you became friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think so. I mean, we were coworkers and we were classmates, so
okay.
Definitely had to, be around each other.
Okay. And what kind of things would y'all talk about? I mean, did she talk about her fiance and moving to Colorado and getting married and all that kind of stuff with you?
Well, yeah, you're getting a little too far ahead, which is fine. Yeah, she was with him, and she did talk about him, and I did see him a couple times, or not a couple times, obviously I saw him a lot, because he came to school, and we did, art gallery showings for projects, and then also I would go, and sometimes we even carpool, so, we did go to concerts together, and we did hang out outside of class and outside of work. Because she lived in Fairfield, I was in Hamilton at my parents' house, so we carpooled occasionally when we had classes and our schedules were in sync. But the whole Colorado thing that you're talking about was I graduated early. I graduated in June of 2011, and she wasn't anticipated to graduate until September, October. I can't remember exactly, but fall time. Excuse me. And so that part I didn't know because I had already graduated, and we kind of grew distant, and I decided to no longer further our relationship after I graduated because she and I had a falling out January, February, March of 2011. So I decided to just say we're going to be friends at school, we're going to be friends in the store, but she had violated my trust, so I decided to no longer extend the friendship outside of that.
Wait, you didn't want to be friends with Katelyn anymore? She violated your trust. My question, how?
Can you explain what happened with that?
Yeah, what happened was I was in the bookstore working on a project, and I had been crazy trying to get my mind around it. And she was just very go-getter. She was very anxious, and she wanted me to go and get my schedule, and she wanted me to register for my next quarter classes. And I said, yeah, I'll get it, no problem. And she was very, very persistent. She wanted me to go and get my classes registered. And I said, I will, in good time, don't worry about it. And I think it was because she was juggling so much. She was working at a bookstore. She was taking 3, 4, 5 classes. I was only taking 3 classes, which is the minimum. And she takes like 4 or 5 classes at a time, I think, at that particular time. And she was also taking on a side job as a custodian or something at Forever 21. I went and helped her at Tri-County Mall and got applications and saved her in a food court while she filled them out and things like that. And then also I think she was also wanting to get another job because I don't think that was giving her what she wanted when it came to hours. So I think she started looking into Davis Bridal, but she hadn't started yet as to what I heard of what she was talking about. And then she wanted to do an internship. So she was just really, really overwhelmed, and I think she wanted me to get my classes registered so she could get her schedule planned. And I said, don't worry about it. I was like, plan whatever you got, and I'll take the leftovers if I get less hours at the bookstore. No big deal. So she didn't like that answer. And against my wishes, and against the bookstore manager's wishes, she went upstairs to the academic director, or the dean, not the dean, I can't remember. It was the academic director, I think. Yeah, it was one of the academic directors, because they were switching on and off between positions up there. And she went and asked for my future, if you will, almost draft of my registered classes. She came back down and she put it on my desk, and she was like, you're welcome. And I was like, well, I didn't ask you to do that, thank you very much. And I gave the piece of paper back to her, and I guess she went and took the piece of paper to the manager in the bookstore and said, I registered Allison for these classes. And he said, no, I didn't, ask you to do that, and I don't think she asked you to do that if my memory serves. And so I wasn't happy with that. And she had done that numerous times. She had violated my privacy, if you will. She had gone above and beyond, if you will, of what I didn't ask her to do. Okay. So I was kind of upset with her. So I said, please don't do that. And she just thought it was no big deal. And I had numerous conversations with her about it, and she still did not think it was a big deal. And I was upset. And I said, please don't do this. So I went and talked to the academic director that she got that information from, and he didn't think it was a big deal either. And I was like, I think it is, because I told her not to. She did it anyway. And he was like, well, you guys were friends. And I was like, yeah, but still, you don't give out information about my future classes to someone else. And right. He just thought it was no big deal. So I didn't seem satisfied with that. I thought that was kind of rude on their part. So I decided to go and I went to the bathroom, and I was upset. And another academic director, I think she was in fashion, and she was like, what's upset? Or why are you upset? And I told her, and she was like, well, that's not fair. And I was like, I agree. What do I do? I was like, the people that do care can't do anything about it. And the people that can do something about it don't seem to care. So she was like, well, let me go and talk to somebody. So I went and got a hold of the dean, and he was a previous FBI agent, and he took me very seriously, and I was happy about that. And he took my case and opened, like, not an investigation, but just, like, opened up, the doors and talked to the academic director. And a couple days later, he apologized and said he shouldn't have done that. And I was like, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please don't do it again. And then I talked to Katelyn that Monday over the weekend, or talked to her on Monday and let it stew over the weekend. But over that weekend, she decided to, as well, to make a design, like, I think she created an Illustrator, it looked like, but she actually made, like, a calendar type of thing with my future classes, and she kind of put in, like, little colored boxes and said, Allison, you're going to work this day, and you're going to work that day, and she posted it on Facebook for everybody to see, which that kind of scared me, because, I mean, that could violate my security, like, somebody that I'm friends with, or somebody that I'm not friends with, what I mean is, on her page, she has friends that I'm not friends with, is what I mean, and maybe I don't want to be friends with those people, and they could, find me, get me, whatever. So I didn't like that. So that Monday I told her, I was like, I didn't appreciate you doing this, and I didn't appreciate you doing that. And I told you numerous times not to do this, and that's not fair, and I don't want you to do that anymore. So we're just going to be strictly colleagues and strictly classmates. So this is how it's going to end, but I'll still be friendly with you. And she was upset, and she apologized if I hurt your feelings or if I violated your privacy, and I wasn't happy with that, because I guess I focused on the if part of it instead of actually really realizing that she was apologizing. So I should have forgave her, but I was like, I only have a couple weeks left because I graduated early. And I was supposed to graduate the same time she was, in September, October, November time, that's all. And I graduated early. I had too many credits, and they were not applicable from 2005 when they transferred from the original school when they went and transferred to Mason. I think that's the name of the road in Mason. And I decided, I'm just not going to fret over it. Yeah, I'm going to lose a friend, but I'd much rather have a friend that I trust versus someone that I didn't at that particular time. And that's how that happened.
Okay, I can see both sides here. Katelyn trying to help and Allison concerned with invasion of privacy and security issues. I totally get Allison's concern and would have probably acted in a similar fashion. But I don't think Katelyn had malice in her heart, but just possibly stepped over the line a little bit. Do I think Allison killed Katelyn? No, I don't.
Okay, when you were friends with her, was there any body that was kind of creeping her out, interested in her, but she wasn't interested in him, stalking her, basically?
No, she never told me anything about that. I mean, she did talk a little bit, not very much, about her previous relationships, but she mostly was just in awe of the relationship that she was in with John, because she did lose his virginity to him, and he was her first, he was her first love, or vice versa, she was his first love, and she was just in awe of them because they did live relatively close to each other, and they had a good relationship. And she talked a little bit about it, but I didn't hear any names about guys that she had been with. I just know that she said that none of them compared to the one that she was in. So I don't remember any names. I don't remember any specific situations. She didn't recall them to me. She just said that they weren't good. She just kind of said that this one was the best compared to the previous.
Okay. Did she hang out with any male friends there? It looked like she hung out with a lot of females, but were there any male friends that were hung around her a lot?
We did have a special group. We did have the majority of our classes together for the year and a half that we were there, when I was there. But it was a mix. It had males and females. Excuse me. But I'm not sure that I ever saw her singly hanging out with other men, because she liked to hang out with groups, and if she did hang out with other single, individuals, just her and another person, they were mostly girls. So I'm not sure about that, because I do know that she did have a good group of friends there before I came back for my bachelor's, because she had already been there for a year or 2 years with her associates. So I'm not really sure. Sorry, was that a vibration again?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. But I don't know specifically. I just know that she had a group of friends before I got there, and occasionally I would see them, but I never saw her individually with those people, or men especially.
Okay.
So, Katelyn wasn't talking bad about John to school friends. Allison said she was in awe of John because he was her first. I asked Allison about Mickey.
Now, was there another friend named Mickey? That was... Okay. And what was their relationship like, do you know?
We were all in the same group, like I said, in the graphic design group. She was in there with all of us because she was with her bachelor's. We were all in bachelor classes. She hung out with her too. I used to have graphic design parties at her house, and she opened up her house for Katelyn's birthday. I think she had just turned 20 or 21. I can't remember which birthday. I want to say 21. And it was relatively a nice party. I only stayed for a couple hours because I had to go to work the next day. It was a Friday night, if my memory serves me, and I had to work the next day, Saturday, from 9 at the bookstore, from 9 to 12, I think, or 9 to 1. I can't remember the time. But I didn't stay for very long, so I drove one of Katelyn's friends, and she asked me that he lived right next to me in Hamilton. She was like, can you go and pick him up on the way there? And I was like, yeah, no problem. I think his name was Abe or Abraham, I can't remember. I think he was Mexican or some type of Spanish descent, because I know he spoke Spanish.
Okay.
And
What? Abe? Remember back during the Rick Fields, Mike Palmerton interviews, the neighbor that lived by John's apartment, Abe? This was the same guy Mike Palmerton kind of befriended and hung out with a little bit. Now friends with Katelyn? Yes, Ricky lied, but other witnesses have confirmed Abe was Landon's friend and hung out at John's apartment. John even confirmed Abe was Landon's friend as well. So, is it the same Abe? Because she said she thought he was Spanish, but Spanish people can be dark-skinned. And Ricky said that he was a black guy. So, is this the same person?
There were two gentlemen. One went by the name of Abe. He was a black guy. Younger,
Abe?
probably 19 at the time.
You said
Yes,
Abe?
Abe.
Okay.
So for now, we're not sure, but we do know that Abe that hung out with John and kind of dealt drugs was there with Landon at John's apartment, and the guy that Allison picked up for Katelyn, that was Katelyn's friend, was named Abe as well. That's all we know at this point. Let's venture back into Allison's interview.
And I took him and picked him up, and I took him over to Mickey's, which was in Mount Healthy. And we went there, and they had their party, and he had a couple drinks, and I didn't have any drinks because I was driving. And the party seemed pretty rambunctious, and then I was like, all right, we'll need to go. So I saw my cousin there, and he was Alyssa. And Alyssa, which I thought was interesting because I didn't even know Alyssa. Sorry, that vibration is scaring me. Okay, Alyssa was my cousin, and I didn't know that Katelyn and Alyssa knew each other. So it was kind of like, hey, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So hung out with her for a little bit, and that was kind of cool. And then, like I said, a couple hours later, I left. But as soon as we left, it started to get pretty raging. And then I guess a couple days later, like on Monday, I was asking her about it, and she was like, yeah, it got pretty crazy. And I was like, all right, cool. And then I heard through Mickey that Mickey was tired, so she just went upstairs to go to bed and let the party finish downstairs and outside. So I don't really know. I only hearsay from that particular party. And I think Mickey and Katelyn's relationship was
relatively good. It was kind of like, she was a big sister to us because she is vastly older than us. I think she's in her mid-30s, maybe late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So, Katelyn was in her early 20s, and I was in my mid-20s. So I knew Mickey a little bit before in my associate's degree before, so she was an old friend that we were rekindling friendship with. So that was kind of cool. She's very handy, if you will, when it comes to mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And Katelyn had a pretty junker of a car. So I know that Mickey helped Katelyn a couple times with her car, and I do remember one situation that I had heard from Mickey, that she was helping her with her car one day when the car broke down, and I guess Katelyn was at one of her jobs and they were communicating through the phone, and Mickey went to go pick up the car and fix something on it, and then she was walking back to her car or something like that. And I guess Katelyn said a very sarcastic remark to Mickey, and Mickey was like, I don't appreciate you saying that. So she kind of was short with her, and I'm trying to help you, and you're making remarks to me. That's not very nice. So I heard that story, and I was like, I can see her saying that, because sometimes the experiences that I have with Katelyn, sometimes she didn't know that she was saying things that were rude, or that came off sarcastic, or that came off ungrateful, or came off as, crossing a boundary, I guess. I think that it just seems like a very similar situation that eventually did happen to me a lot later.
Right. Okay, and did Mickey and Katelyn get along always, or was there times where they kind of seemed to butt heads, or what?
I think in the art world we were always butting heads, because we were pretty brutal to each other when it came to class and our projects and giving our feedback and criticizing other people's work. We did not hold anything back. So to a certain extent, I think sometimes we did get on each other's nerves, because we were in each other's face all the time, because when you're in the bachelor degree program, which was a very, very new program, there was a number of us. So every class that we had, we were together all the time. So I did see friction between them, but it was something that I was worried about, because I just thought that friends bicker, friends have ups and downs, and people obviously are on the edge, because school is demanding and school is expensive, and then juggling work, and then just trying to have social life, and then also if you're trying to have a romantic life, and it can get overwhelming. So I didn't see anything at that particular time, no, because she seemed professional to a certain extent, because she was older, so I didn't think anything of it. No.
Right. Now, what kind of person is Mickey?
Well, she's different when it comes to how she holds herself. She's a very proud lesbian. She's large and in charge, if you will. She's very demanding. She's very loud. She's very well heard. She's very knowledgeable. She's very artistic. She's very responsible, I guess, because she, has gone through a lot. I know that she was born and raised in Australia. Her dad was a naval soldier, I think, and then she went from there back to the States, and I know she lived in San Diego for a long time. I know that's where her family is. And then I know to a certain extent she came to Ohio to be with a woman that she fell in love with and was engaged to, and that fizzled out, and they decided to not pursue their engagement. And I know to a certain extent that she was here because she kind of, how she put it, she was stranded here by, love and lust, if you will. But as far as I know, she's just bubbly. She's kind of just very all-around fun person to be around.
Okay. But you didn't know of any, maybe a crush or anything that Mickey had on Katelyn or anything like that?
No, because Mickey was very, very, very clear about the type that she liked. She always said that she liked them big, black, and beautiful. BBB. Okay. She loved big,
black woman. Not kind of like very fat. She seems very like voluptuous, very curvy women. So that was her type. I remember my associate's degree program. It was right after she had broken up with her fiance, and I was trying to, make her feel better. And I had a couple friends of mine who came out to me, and I was like, hey, I think I have a friend for you. And I would, show Mickey pictures. She's like, no, she's too white for me. I would not even touch her. And I was like, oh, okay, good to know. So I would, from then I would go and, try to get other prospects for her. So no, I don't think that she would be her type.
I usually don't text during an interview. I've never done it. But Detective Patton was texting me about the case, and I really needed to respond to him. I find it very rude, but I had to do it. I also had a phone that I couldn't turn on mute. I had dropped it many times, and it had a lot of stuff wrong with it. I got a new phone shortly after that interview. But I wanted to be upfront about why you continuously heard text coming through, because I couldn't mute it, and why I was texting when I was talking to what seemed to be a pretty important witness. I couldn't avoid either, so I hope you forgive me for doing that. It really, really bugged me that I had to do that, and listening to it now, it bugs me even more. So, I called Mickey twice while in Fairfield, Ohio in February of 2015. I left 2 messages, but my requests for an interview went unanswered. This week, I attempted to get Mickey to tell her story and reached out to her via Facebook Messenger. Mickey accepted my message request, and I observed that she was reading the message via the iPhone indicator. Again, Mickey didn't respond. As a side note, John mentioned that Mickey didn't like him very much. As we heard, Mickey liked big, beautiful black women, or BBB, as Allison stated. Is that all she liked? Katelyn was a lovely, beautiful person, and it was evident that most of her friends loved her. I have a selfie of Katelyn and Mickey back when they were friends, and it makes me wonder if Mickey's feelings were more than just that of a friend. Mickey won't talk to me, so I don't know the answer to that. John Carter, who has taken a lot more criticism than anyone else in this case, spoke to me more times than I can count and met me several times. I hope law enforcement hears this, but who knows if they will act in an investigative manner. I'm certainly not implying Mickey did anything to Katelyn. I have no proof of that. But as these questions arise, the more and more I feel law enforcement needs to take another look, if they looked in the first place. A couple of things before I close the investigation and start the breakdown portion of the podcast. This information doesn't have anything to do with the school friends. We're done with that segment of this episode. Number 1. I have been discussing polygraphs with several people on the Gone at 21 Facebook discussion page and in messages as well. I want to say this: polygraphs are a tool to guide the investigation. Me giving these polygraphs to some witnesses have nothing to do with being admissible in court. It's about guidance in a direction that needs to be investigated more. The willingness to take a polygraph and to help the investigation says a lot by itself. Let's take Heather Hapney and Ryan Isaacs. What needed to be done immediately after their polygraphs? Well, exactly what Brad Kelly and I did when the Fairfield PD failed to show up after the appointment I made the day before. What was that? Interview them about the questions. The second thing that I would do if I were the police, Heather had a car and also drove a van in 2011. The car is still registered to her, but obviously the registration is expired, and it expired in 2012, which tells me she got rid of the car. Her mom said that the car is no longer around. So if it's not re-registered, did she sell it to a junkyard? That needs to be found out. Those cars need to be processed. So you can investigate results of a polygraph, even though polygraphs aren't admissible in court, and it is a good tool. After returning to Florida, I obtained several new pieces of information extremely important to the case. That information will be coming up in future episodes. The investigation's over. Now we're going to the breakdown. The first episode will be coming out next week. If you're interested in supporting this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Gauntlet21. Please like and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please rate and review. Until next time, I'm Jay Ryan. Take care.